Enjoy watching it. We ate dinner as usual at the kitchen table, just Amy and me, because our children have grown up and no longer live with us. The food was simple, a vegetable stir-fry that I cooked today. I made dinner because she had something to do at the school where she works and was late. Amy is usually home before me, but not today. We decided long ago that family dinners were important, not only for Amy and me but also for spending time with our children. I was about to pour myself more coffee when my 51-year-old wife said something I didn't immediately catch. I was immersed in thoughts about a problem at work and didn't listen carefully. What she said seemed ridiculous to me, and I probably misunderstood her. I noticed that she was looking at me intently, waiting for a reaction. "What?" I asked. "I don't understand. What are you saying?" Amy studied my face with a strange expression. "I'm dating Cody," she said quickly. "You know, the new gym teacher at school, Cody Bakersfield. I know you've met him." "I know who Cody is," I replied, trying to comprehend what she had just said. Suddenly, I had a strange feeling in my stomach. "So, you're dating him? What does that mean?" Amy took a deep breath. "We became friends, Cliff. I had lunch with him, and after school, we sometimes meet and go somewhere together." "Are you dating him? Do you go somewhere with him?" I grinned. "Damn, Amy, what are you telling me? Are you having an affair?" It was a joke, and I waited impatiently for her to refute my ridiculous remark. Instead, she looked at me carefully and said, "Yes." I grinned, not believing it, and exclaimed, "What? Are you having an affair?" "Yes, Cliff." This can't be true. I wanted to say something, but the words got stuck in my throat. "Please, just listen, Cliff," she said quickly. "I'm sure this is a shock to you, and I know what you're thinking, but it's not what you think. It's not bad, honey. Truly, it's not bad. I just had to tell you about Cody because I love and respect you. I've always loved you. Do you respect me? Do you love me?" I asked, breathless. "How can you?" "It's true," she interrupted me. "You have always been number one for me. Marrying you is the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you and will never leave you. I love you so much. I just couldn't keep going out with him without telling you." My eyes glared at her face, hoping that this conversation was some kind of joke, maybe a prank. Amy loves me as much as I love her. She couldn't have an affair. When she didn't retract her words, I tried to understand what was happening. "I don't know what to say, Amy. I'm completely confused now. Please don't be upset, Cliff," she begged. "Yes, I'm dating Cody, but he's just a friend, and I don't love him. Think about it, dear. My meetings with him did not affect our love and our relationship in any way." I ground my teeth, still shocked by this unexpected turn of events. "How can you say you love me?" "I really love you," she continued sincerely. "We have a wonderful marriage, and I will always appreciate that, but I need other male friends too." "I never complained about you having male friends," I countered. "I know that, and I appreciate it. And that's what Cody is to me. I always love being with you, honey, but with Cody, it's different. He's much younger than us and thinks differently about such things. I have to admit that sometimes he makes me feel like a teenager again." "I've heard enough," I shouted. I wanted to remain reasonable, but my composure suddenly snapped. I had to interrupt her romantic story. "Please, spare me the details of your dirty affair. I don't want to hear how you feel with him or what you and that idiot are doing behind my back." Amy saw my anger and spoke carefully. "I'm sorry, honey. I know this is a touchy subject right now, but I want to be honest. Please don't hate me. Yes, I see Cody, but you don't have to worry about anyone finding out. We were very careful that no one knew. We were both convinced of this. I'm sure you never suspected anything, and neither did anyone else. Is this supposed to calm me down? Probably not. I just wanted you to know that we don't disrespect you in public, just alone." I thought to myself, please believe me, Cliff. Cody will never take your place. He's just a fun young guy that I enjoy hanging out with, the guy who gets for me what you never missed. I will always put you first in everything, and please believe that I never meant to hurt you. I just couldn't keep hiding it from you. Being with Cody is a small favor that I ask you to allow me, asterisk. Her carefree attitude made me seethe. Asterisk, is he just a funny guy? A service? Is she giving him something I'll never miss? Asterisk, my face turned red with anger, and my eyes glared at her. I tried to curse at her. You selfish, treacherous, I gasped with rage. Before I could stop myself, I blurted out, You damn cheating heartless, how the hell could you? She let me finish my tirade and then said, I guess I deserve it. I couldn't stand it anymore. I jumped up so quickly that the chair I was sitting on tipped over backward. I turned around and angrily walked out of the room, my coffee forgotten. Where are you going, Cliff? Amy screamed. Don't leave me, please. I need time to think about it, I told her sharply. Give me a couple of minutes, and I'll be back. I walked out the back door as she sobbed, Okay, my dear. I stepped out onto the spacious terrace behind the house, red with rage and breathing heavily. She's cheating, I was furious with the disrespect she had shown me. I slammed the railing in frustration before trying to calm myself down. I'm usually pretty even-tempered, but tonight, listening to her talk about her cheating, I was losing control. Over the years, the ability to remain calm and control my emotions has served me well as an accountant. Often, when speaking with an anxious client, my calm, cool analysis of their situation would calm them down and help me find a way out of their financial problems. Unfortunately, this was different because it was personal. I couldn't believe my wife. We've been married for over 20 years, and now she's telling me she's having an affair with a younger guy she works with. Yes, I met this idiot. I thought he was just her friend when I met him at some school event a while back. Amy introduced him as a friendly acquaintance, and I was foolish enough to believe her. Now I know that everything is different. My exhausted mind was reeling with disturbing images of what I had just heard. I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. I needed to think, and I couldn't do that if I was agitated. Barging back into the kitchen and yelling at her would only turn our conversation into a bitter argument. Swearing might satisfy me at first, but in the long run, it would be counterproductive. Screaming and swearing are not my style. If I know Amy, then yelling and swearing will only make my stubborn wife even more entrenched in her position. It wouldn't give me any information to figure out how to get her to stop. No, I needed to approach this issue using all my abilities. I had to force myself to return to the objective, non-emotional state of being an accountant. I needed information about her affair so I could analyze the data objectively. It took another 10 minutes before my blood pressure dropped. When my heart stopped racing and my breathing became normal, I returned to the house to confront my unfaithful wife. Amy was still sitting at the kitchen table, nervously fingering her cup of coffee. When I entered, she looked up at me with an anxious, uncertain expression. She waited until I sat down again and began to speak. I raised my hand to stop her. Wait a second. Let's start over, I said in an even tone. Needless to say, my dear, I never expected this today. I have to say, Amy, I'm completely overwhelmed and very upset right now. Oh, Cliff, you don't have to be. I raised my hand again to stop her. Stop. So, what's your plan now? I think you want me to forgive and forget. Is that true, Amy? You're dating a guy at work behind my back, and I should just forgive you? Well, not really, she replied, looking uncertain. I knew you would be upset. I can't blame you for that. I just wanted you to know what's going on. I didn't want you to be in the dark. Damn it! I swore, unable to resist. What did that clever man say when you told him you were going to tell me everything? Well, he thought, we both thought it was for the best, Cliff. Is that what he said? Not really. Despite what you might think, Cody isn't a bad guy. I know he's sorry we hid it. We're both sorry. Is it true? Yes. He doesn't want to ruin our marriage, and neither do I. I was about to encourage her to end the affair when she plunged the knife even deeper. With a determined look, she sighed, Phew, this is so difficult. But now that you know what's going on, I want to keep seeing him. Not too often, Mind you, just sometimes. And, of course, after finishing school. I gasped at her impudence and snorted, "Oh, of course." I was stunned, and maybe she was too. We just sat and looked at each other. The atmosphere was incredibly tense for a while before my wife sighed with a pained expression on her face. "I'm so sorry, honey. I know this is difficult for you, but he's a really good guy. We got along on some level, and we had fun together. I admit that I'm attracted to him, but it won't affect us in any way." "You must be joking." "No, I'm not kidding. My meetings with him will not change anything between us. They haven't influenced us yet, and I am sure they won't in the future. You probably won't agree, but I think he was a good friend to me. It may seem strange to you, but I think he was good for our marriage too." "Is it true?" "You're crazy. Just try to think logically, Cliff. Have you noticed how joyful and happy I've been lately? Remember how you accused me of being grumpy last year? I admit that I was like that. We fought, our marriage was strained, and our night life became boring. We were at an impasse when I started dating him. What a wonderful story. I assume he's also a marriage counselor?" She ignored my sarcasm. "Ever since we became friends, Cody has helped me straighten out my attitude. I appreciate it, and I know you do too. We're probably more than just friends now. I don't need to see him often, just sometimes, when you're busy. I know we can work through this, Cliff. I love you. I want to grow old with you and be with you always, you should know this." I could hardly believe the nonsense I was hearing. "So you're not going to end the affair?" It was a statement. "You're asking me to accept that you will continue to sleep with him?" "Of course, it will end, dear. Eventually," she assured me. "We get along well now, but he is much younger than me. We are from different generations and have very different interests. Cody and I could never have a long-term committed relationship like the one we have. At some point, our mutual feelings will simply fade away, just not right now. You're really out of your mind. Please, Cliff, you have to believe me. I promise that nothing between us will change one iota." She patted me on the wrist like a good boy. "I'm still the same loving wife I've always been. We will continue to maintain our loving relationship. I love making love to you and always will. You haven't noticed anything different over the past few months, have you?" I didn't want to admit it, but she was right. I never suspected the real reason why our relationship had become so passionate lately. When we started dating, Amy and I had a night often. Over time, we remained just as loving, but as the children grew older and began to take up a lot of our time, our intimate life slowed down somewhat. Even after they left for college, we never got back to the same frequency. I didn't see this as a problem. I assumed that most married couples our age didn't spend every night in bed. But with this new knowledge, I realized that Amy was right. We were back to the way things were. I couldn't deny that I was delighted that we were now making love several times a week, if not more often. This was the same frequency as before, when the children were younger. When she asked if I had noticed any negative changes in her night life while she was sleeping with Cody, the truth was that I had not. When I didn't answer, she answered for me. "Of course not," she said confidently. "Even though I saw Cody from time to time, I was always there for you. You have to admit that we often make love for people our age, and I enjoy it as much as you do. I am always there for you when you need me. We both love each other. I know that when I'm with you, Cody never comes between us. He's just a small part of my life. We have a stable 20-year marriage, and I want to continue it." I asked in disbelief, "Of course you love me, but how can I stay married to a cheating woman like you?" She didn't like that. She frowned, and her sympathetic expression hardened. "This is wrong," she stated flatly through clenched lips. "I'm surprised that you insult me like that. This is the first time I've cheated on you, and just so you know, I've never been with a man I didn't have feelings for." "So you have feelings for him?" I exclaimed. "This is just wonderful. How can I be sure that you won't just replace me with a young model? Are you just waiting to see how things turn out with this idiot while keeping me on the side in case it fails?" "That's not true at all, Cliff," she insisted. "You are my husband, and I really love you, dear. I'll never leave you." I just want to be with Cody every now and then, not always, and not forever, just until I get this weird craving out of my system. That's all I ask. Just a little time to do something you'll never have to worry about. It won't affect us, just like it hasn't had any impact over the past few months. I sat there for several agonizing minutes while my naive, stupid wife continued to talk. I couldn't believe that she thought our relationship wouldn't change now that I knew she was cheating. It had already changed. My mind was filled with disturbing images of what she and that man did every time she wasn't home. After a while, I came back to reality and began to listen to how she justified her dirty affair. It'll be better for us in the long run, Cliff. I've been much more relaxed and positive lately, and more relaxed in bed, I mean. She giggled. You should have noticed how much better the night has become. I have never refused you a night, and I don't intend to. I also allowed you something you've been dreaming about for years now. I'll let you do whatever you want. Since I started dating Cody, I have been able to fully express my intimate side. You should have noticed. Do you feel like that, Cliff? She's right again, I noticed, and it pissed me off. Our intimate life was quite conservative. I didn't complain. Amy was a wonderful woman and a generous lover. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice that Amy had changed over the past few months. I thought it was because the kids weren't around or because of some hormonal changes with age. Maybe I have become a better lover. Now I realized it was the damn young stud from school. I always considered myself lucky to have married her when we met. Amy was a cute divorcee, 4 years older than me, with 2 young children. I was drawn to her, and we hit it off immediately. This was her second marriage and my first. I was happy to be in a relationship with such a charming, intelligent woman. My work colleagues used to tease me for having an older wife, but I loved her and her children and never worried that they were not mine. Her first husband was a failure and an irresponsible father. He left her shortly after the birth of their second child. When we got married, I adopted them and raised them as my own. Although I was not their biological father, I was the only dad they had ever known. Both have grown into respected young men, and I am proud of them. Now, after 20 happy years of marriage, she unleashes this crap on me. Say something, Cliff, she begged, studying my face. I know you are upset and may feel hurt. I don't want you to feel this way. I want to help make this as easy as possible. I know that you still care about me, and I know you have needs. Let me help you feel better, darling. You will always be my number one. She stood up from her seat, smiled at me, and walked toward me, swaying her hips in a way that usually turned me on. Please don't worry about anything. I am here for you. Tell me how I can help you, honey. I'm sure we'll come up with something. When she started to sit on my lap, I pushed her away. She looked at me, offended, but did not insist. Without warning, I stood up and left the room. It caught her off guard, and she barely had time to yell, "Wait," before I was out the door and in the car. As I was leaving, I saw her at the door with her hands covering her face. I had to leave before I did anything I would regret. 10 minutes passed before I realized I was just driving aimlessly. I thought I'd do what angry spouses usually do, go to a bar and get drunk. There was a small local bar on the next corner, so I parked in front of it, walked in, and sat down. I ordered a beer, and the bartender saw that I was upset. "Problems, mister?" he asked. He was a fat man with a beard. He seemed sympathetic, so I told him the whole painful conversation I had just had with my wife. "This is not good," he commented, "but it's a story I've heard too often." "And what do the other guys do to fix it?" "Varies. Some go crazy, beat up their opponent, and end up in jail. Others simply leave the cheating wife and move on with their lives." "What are you thinking about?" "Don't know. She just told me today." "I think I'm still in shock." "That's reasonable," he answered. He wiped the bar with a towel and added, "It's none of my business, but if it were me, I would want to know how it all started." "How will this help?" "You said you were an accountant and you needed data to solve a problem, right?" "Yes, I remember that I told you this. In my opinion, you need to find out how she got into a relationship with this guy. How he convinced your usually faithful wife to cheat. How he got under her skin. Even if you can't get back together, it might help you feel better knowing that it was just her character flaw and you didn't do anything wrong. It's all on her. Bingo. It sounded like a bell. He was right. I can't just run away from this. I have too much time and emotion invested in our marriage to just give up. Maybe if I find out how it started, I can somehow undo it. It will hurt, I'm sure of it, but I need to know. You know, you're right, I told him. I threw a 20 on the bar and headed out. He shouted, "You left a 20, mate." "Keep the change," I told him. It was worth it. Thank you. I went home with a specific purpose. The guy didn't know me at all, but he gave me great advice. When I got home, Amy was on the phone. She looked surprised to see me and was whispering quietly into her phone when she saw me in the room. "I have to go," she whispered. "No, I can't. He's back." I could tell from her tense face that she was talking to her boyfriend. This irritated me, but I forced myself to remain calm and determined. I had to do what the smart bartender suggested. I returned to my place. The cold cup of coffee was still there. Amy sat opposite me with a serious expression on her face. "Cliff," she started before I interrupted her. "Wait, let me speak. I'm not sure what I want to hear, but I think I should know how your affair began. I hope this will somehow help me deal with it." With a grim look, I asked her, "So, what's the timeline, Amy? How long have you been breaking our marriage vows?" Amy sighed. Right on point, she must have thought. "Not too long," she confessed. "We've been friends for a while. The physical relationship only progressed a few months ago." When I just sat there without saying a word, she decided to continue. "It all started innocently enough. As you know, Cody and I both work at the same school. We met last year when he was hired and became friends and colleagues soon after. Soon after he was hired, he started showing up in the cafeteria. The room is quite small, and there are only a few tables. Nobody objected when he asked to join me and a few friends at our table. After that day, it wasn't unusual for Cody to join the girls for lunch, not every day, mind you, only from time to time. I saw him at dinner from time to time. The other teachers I have lunch with are all women, and most of them are married. Since he was one of the few male teachers, not to mention young, single, and good-looking, it seemed like everyone enjoyed his company, and I did too. There was no flirting involved, just good-natured banter with a group of teachers enjoying their lunch break. It was around the time that Heidi and I, along with some of the other teachers, were talking about going to gym classes. We had been complaining for years that we were all out of shape. We wanted to go to a health spa to exercise and get back in shape, but you know how expensive some of these gyms are, so we never did it. I wouldn't mind paying for a gym membership, I told her the truth. "I know, honey, but with 2 kids in college and a house to pay off, our finances are always tight," you replied. I also didn't want to burden us with the cost of a gym membership. Besides, it was just a trivial topic of conversation between me and the girls. We didn't take it seriously. Well, Cody was in the cafeteria and overheard what we were talking about. He agreed that organizing physical education classes for teachers was a great idea. He said we could use the school gym if we wanted and even volunteered to be our personal trainer and show us what to do. "I'm sure he did," I noted dryly. Everyone thought it was a great idea. Around that time, you were involved in some big project. If you remember, you returned home a little later than me. I had a couple of hours of free time after school, which I usually spent grading papers and planning lessons. I had been wanting to get in shape for a long time but was worried about the cost. Since Cody wasn't going to charge us anything, money was no object, and going to the gym right after school was convenient and important. So Cody was delighted, I'm sure, I added. "So how did you go from training with Cody tonight?" "I'll come back to that later," she said. "I think you remember me telling you that I was starting a training program with Heidi and the girls." "Yes," I answered. I remembered her mentioning this. She's right, I was busy at the time because we had a lot of work to do to land an important client. I got home late some nights, so I wasn't unhappy that Amy had something to keep her occupied until I got home for dinner. She actually seemed more optimistic then. Over dinner, she casually mentioned her workout routine to me a few times, and I noticed that she was very enthusiastic about getting in shape. I remember thinking at the time that she had really lost weight, like she had lost a few pounds. Not that she needed it, because she had never been overweight. Amy has always been slim since I've known her. She's never had a weight problem. Her hips are slender, her butt is flat, and her waist is narrow. Her small, perky breasts fit perfectly with her slender figure. After she told me that she was working out, I especially remembered that her legs, which had always been her best feature, began to look more defined. She has a noticeable bump on her belly, but it's not unsightly. I think most mothers her age have it. As I reminisced about those happy times, Amy continued, "At first, it was just us girls and Cody, of course. We went to the school gym after classes. Cody was our unofficial, free instructor. He gave some sort of after-school classes to the teachers. It was fun and gave us time to socialize and relax after a busy day with the students. I really liked it, but unfortunately, after a while, the other girls began to drop out one after another. They said they were too busy to spend time away from their families. After 3 months, it was just Heidi, Cody, and me. It took another 2 weeks for even Heidi to decide to quit. So now it's just you and Cody?" I asked, trying not to overreact. "Yes." I asked him if we should stop because everyone but us was too busy. Cody said he was sad to hear that. He said that he enjoyed our activities and especially the time he spent with me. He made it clear that he would like to continue. At first, I didn't want to do it. In the entire time we've been married, I've never done anything even remotely wrong. I told Cody that I was worried about gossip, a married woman like me spending time alone with a nice guy like him. She looked down, seemingly remorseful. He laughed and said I shouldn't worry about other people's opinions. That's not a reason to give up good health. That's when he suggested we move our training to the gym in his apartment complex. I probably shouldn't have even considered it, but at that time, I wasn't even remotely thinking about an affair. I admit I was flattered by his statements. Cody is a nice guy, much younger than me. Looking back, I probably already had a bit of a crush on him, even though up until that point, I had just thought of him as a fun and nicely little brother. But I think that changed. "Yes, of course, it did," she said. As it turned out, I accepted his offer. This solved the problem of school gossip because no one from school saw us together. It also allowed me to continue improving my body. The next day, we started training there. Although the room was quite small and not as nice as the school's gym, it did have some dumbbells, a mat, some exercise equipment, and a treadmill. But after I was persuaded, yes, a couple of weeks later, everything changed. I knew it was dangerous to be alone with him, but I was so in love with you that I thought I could handle it. There was never any hint from either of us about anything other than training. Cody is a nice guy, funny, and a lot of fun to be around. He's also so handsome and in great shape, I couldn't ignore that. His muscular body was hard to overlook. By our third training session, I had to force myself to focus on the training and not let my thoughts wander where they shouldn't. As usual, he was very friendly and helpful. We both enjoyed training together. And then? I repeated, losing patience. She looked at me seriously, as if begging for understanding. We never wanted anything to happen. I definitely didn't want to. We were just a couple of fun friends who trained together and sometimes had lunch. We never told anyone about our private workouts, and I think everyone assumed we stopped working out after school due to a lack of interest. After one of our workouts, I felt a little pain in my shoulder. Cody noticed this and offered to massage it, and I let him. When Cody suggested we go to his place to shower, I just nodded, dumbfounded. So that's how it all started, in his apartment. Yes, Amy looked a little shocked by her detailed confession. Maybe she was ashamed, I don't know. With a red face, she told me, when I finally noticed the time, it was already late, and I panicked and wanted to leave. I knew you'd be late, but I desperately wanted to get home before you. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I was still dizzy on the way home. I don't know how I didn't have an accident. So you came home after having a night with someone else, and I didn't know anything? I think that's true. I got home half an hour before you, which gave me time to shower and get ready. I got dressed in record time and prepared a quick dinner for us. When you got home, I lied and told you I wasn't feeling well and went straight to bed after a quick meal. You were so sweet, asking if I needed anything to help me feel better. I was already feeling damn guilty, hating myself for being so weak. Your concern only made me feel worse, but not bad enough to stop the affair. No, you're wrong. When I went to school the next day, I didn't even want to see Cody, let alone talk to him. He had to track me down and force me to go to lunch with him to clear things up. He could see that I was upset about what happened and didn't want me to feel bad about it. He said he loved me very much and that it was a wonderful experience. If I didn't want to do it with him again, he would have accepted it, but he would always cherish the memory of being with a beautiful older woman like me. His flattery finally overcame my anxiety. He acted like what we did was no big deal and teased me for worrying so much. The longer we talked, the more I began to relax and just think about his comments. By the end of lunch, I was laughing at his jokes and teasing him back. During our conversation, he made it clear that he would like to see me again but didn't pressure me to do so. He was handsome, a talented lover, and I have to admit, the intim was great. I began to wonder what our next session would be like now that I knew what he had to offer in the bedroom. After that day, we didn't get together for lunch very often. Being with him in public too much would attract unwanted attention, but we continued to meet at his apartment after school several days a week. However, there was no more training, just intimate. I know it was wrong, but I didn't stop. I was a little nervous about putting our marriage at risk, so I tried to make sure you didn't notice anything special about me. I think I succeeded. She took a deep breath, as if telling me this story was a big burden for her. So where do we go from here? I asked. You just admitted that you lied and cheated on me for months. How do you think I feel? Do you expect me to congratulate you for being so clever? No, not at all, Cliff. She reached across the table and took my hand. I tensed but didn't pull away. No matter how devastated I was, I still loved her. Please understand, I am very ashamed that I deceived you, she said. I hate the fact that I let you down. I know you never knew about Cody because we were very careful about our relationship. I didn't want you to know about us. I was so ashamed of what I did, and I was nervous that you would suspect something. The first few times I came home after meeting him, I felt terrible and swore it would never happen again. He never forced me to continue, he was happy to see me from time to time. We both agreed that we didn't want to ruin my marriage. I think that has changed. She held my hand tighter and watched how I took it. No matter how badly I behave, I know that I love you. Cody is a good guy and will be a great catch for a lucky girl someday, but he can never take your place. I kept telling him that we could never be more than just friends with benefits, and he agreed with that. He said he loved me very much but felt the same way. As long as we didn't raise any suspicions at school, I knew I could probably keep having a night with him without anyone knowing. However, avoiding him completely when our colleagues know we are friends would raise questions that I don't want to answer. So, we still ate lunch together now and then to look normal, but we never showed that we were anything more than just friends. Sometimes people would join us for dinner, and I know they never suspected anything. I'm sure you were one of the smart ones, I said, losing my cool for a moment. Amy looked at me sadly and nodded her head. Yes, I was smart, of course. On the outside, I was a faithful wife with a great job as a teacher, lots of friends, and a good, traditional marriage. But inside, I knew it was all a lie. The problem I couldn't deal with was my conscience. I've always considered myself an honest person and a good wife. My bad behavior undermined this image. Deep inside, I began to hate myself for deceiving myself. Our marriage was the most important thing in my life and has always remained the most significant. What I had with Cody was a temporary situation. I really cared about him, but my feelings for him were just a shadow of what I felt for you. My lack of virtue began to bother me to the point that I became apathetic toward my life. No matter how I dealt with it, I was losing my virtuous image. I became something I didn't like to be. The solution to this problem is to simply stop cheating. Yes, perhaps that's true, but I'm not sure I can right now, Amy admitted with bitter honesty. I'd like to think I could just stop seeing Cody and everything would go back to normal between us, Cliff, but to be honest, I doubt it. Why? I replied sharply, unable to remain calm. You yourself said that we are happy together. We raised 2 wonderful children and went through the most difficult stages of marriage. We both have great jobs and have built a life together. Now that Martha and Robbie are in college, we have a chance to enjoy time together in a way we couldn't before. If you love me as much as you say, then returning to me and becoming a faithful wife again should not be difficult. She sighed heavily and looked at me with concern. It probably would have been like that at first, but now I'm not sure. Of course, I love you like no one else, Cliff, but in the last few months, I've seen a different side of life and learned a lot about myself and my needs. I'm not sure I could, even if I wanted to, just go back to who I was. I tried to be the same loving wife I always was, but my relationship with Cody opened my eyes to other possibilities. I angrily pulled my hand out of hers. I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't. Other possibilities, huh? I blurted out. You can't stop sleeping with him, can you? I was good enough to marry and support you and your children all these years, but now that some handsome young man has appeared, you don't need me anymore. No, it's not like that, dear. Don't ever think like that, she said. I've always said that you are the best husband and father anyone could ask for. But after so many years of marriage, I've changed. We've both changed. Neither of us is the same as when we got married. It's not bad, it's just the natural development of 2 people who have lived together for a long time. I looked at her, unable to speak without losing my composure. When she saw that I wasn't speaking, Amy continued, I don't want to hurt you, Cliff. I really don't. I know you may not believe me now, but it's true. We will be together, and nothing will change between us. I am sure of that. Even though I'm sorry for your feelings, I'm not unhappy in my life right now. I have a wonderful husband whom I love very much, 2 wonderful children who respect you. I just have a male friend whom I sometimes meet for fun, a nice young man who makes me feel something I haven't felt since I was a teenager. I hope you understand how I feel and that you will love me enough to allow me this freedom. You're a damn fool, I whispered under my breath. If she heard me, she didn't say anything. She just kept talking. It's not that bad, Cliff. Just remember that I will always be there for you. You can always count on me, but I would like everything to remain as it is for a while longer, not forever, just until I'm done exploring these new experiences. Then I'll finish with Cody and get back to you completely. This is what I want for us. Just give me some time to calm down. I hope you appreciate my honesty. I don't want any more secrets. If you allow me this freedom, I promise that I will repay you for it. You will never want for anything, darling. I will always be a good wife. No one will ever know about the little time I spend away from you. Just support me in this matter, and I will be grateful to you for the rest of my life. Crap, this conversation was getting worse by the minute. When she first revealed her infidelities to me, I was taken by surprise. We had started our regular dinner, and I felt great about our marriage. In just a few short minutes, I went from a happy husband to a miserable cuckold. My once loving wife now had a lover who was younger than me and, no doubt, more energetic. It took me a few minutes to come to my senses. It was too much to digest. I thought I could convince her that it was reasonable to stop this affair, but it was now clear that she had no intention of doing so. She just needed my support to continue exploring her feelings. This was the highest degree of delusion among traitors. I tried to remain calm, yelling at her would only make her defensive. I knew this was a big decision for Amy. She was not the kind of frivolous woman who would simply cheat. I would never have married her if I thought that way. I had to believe she had been planning this for some time. She may have already discussed it with her lover, maybe even suggested it to her to calm her fears and make her more accessible to him. He was a cunning man, that's for sure. If I played the role of a jealous, insulted husband, it would only make me look bad and push her deeper into the arms of her lover. I needed to control myself and not go crazy. That all sounds great to you, Amy, of course, I said. You get everything, and if I'm lucky, I get some scraps. Honestly, I wish I could switch roles with that idiot. Then I would have you and any other stupid girl who wants me. She frowned. It's not like that at all. You think you're the only one? Don't be naive. I don't know, he's probably dating other women. He said he doesn't have an intimate with anyone but me, but it doesn't matter. Do I need to get tested for diseases too? I asked, hoping to confuse her. But once again, I was taken by surprise. My smart wife was one step ahead of me. Instead of looking shocked and angry, Amy looked at me with a smug smile. She went to her purse and took out an envelope. You can do it if you want, she said, taking some papers out of the envelope and placing them on the table in front of me. But you don't have to. I'm not stupid, you know, she said with irritation. Read this, and I hope it resolves your concerns on this issue. These are the results of our blood tests. We knew that if you found out we were together, this would come up. So I asked Cody to take me to the clinic a month ago. We both got tested for diseases, and here are the results. If you read them, you'll see that we are both clean. I returned the papers to her and stated, so you're going to stay married to me and just date him on the side? Yes, exactly. Just like we've been doing. Remember, dear, you hadn't noticed anything until now, and nothing will change. I will take care of it. But you lied to me, I said. Well, yes, that's true, but I had to. I didn't mean to hurt you. You lied to me for months. In fact, you lied so well that I didn't even suspect anything. Now you admit all these lies and betrayals and promise to remain my wife, but you don't understand the problem with this. Now that I know you lied constantly, not just to me but to our children, our friends, and everyone else, how can I trust you again? How can I be sure you won't change your mind? Will you change your mind about Cody or some other guy you meet in the future and replace me with a younger model? Amy snorted in annoyance because she knew I had hit the nail on the head. No matter what she said, she was now a proven liar. Nothing she said could be trusted. She looked at me, and a tear appeared in her eyes as if she wanted to refute my words but knew that I was telling the truth. I will never do this, and you know it, she finally said. You are incredibly impudent, I said bitterly. You're acting so arrogant. You throw your betrayal in my face. Why don't I just get rid of you? I don't want a cheating wife, I never wanted one. If I thought these bitter words would hurt her, I was wrong. Amy looked at me with unexpected compassion. When she spoke, there was an edge to her tone that I had never heard before. I know it's difficult right now, she replied, trying not to look smug. But divorce? I doubt it would be in your best interest, Cliff. Why? At least I can keep my pride. Her gaze was sympathetic, which angered me even more. Divorce will hurt both of us a lot, darling. At least I won't put up with your cheating. Maybe that's true, she shrugged her shoulders indifferently. But I don't think you'll be happy with a divorce. None of us will. Her eyes met mine, and in a sharper tone, she explained, for starters, as you know, we live in a no-fault state. I'll probably get half of everything, including the house, savings, and our retirement fund. Since you adopted Martha and Robbie, you will be required to contribute to their education. There's also alimony, since my salary as a teacher is less than half of yours. The court will expect you to support me within reasonable limits. All this could turn out to be quite a decent amount. I assumed that she and her young lover had talked it all over. So you'll rip me off in the divorce, I stated. I certainly don't want that, she said. I would never want that. I want to continue living with you and loving you the same way as before. But if you leave me in the divorce, you will have to pay significant amounts. Of course, I can still date Cody whenever I want, which won't be pleasant for you. It's much better to just continue living the way we have. We'll stay married, we'll still live our wonderful lives, you'll still have me as your loving wife, and we'll be able to have great night whenever you want. Nobody will know anything. I will always consider you my number one. She then added in a sentimental tone, I will always be grateful for your open-mindedness in this matter, and I will give you whatever you want. I just want to be with Cody sometimes, infrequently, very little. The rest of the time, I will make you happy. I was happy before you put this crap on me, I said bitterly. Now I know I'm just a stupid cuckold for my cheating wife and that idiot you work with. That's not true, Cliff. I started to leave, and she shouted, Wait, don't leave me, please. There's nothing to discuss, Amy. You presented your ultimatum, now I need to decide whether to accept it or not. You don't have to worry about anything, she screamed. Nothing will change between us, you'll see. I love you so much for giving me this freedom. I will do everything to make you happy. Then stop your cheating right now. She sighed heavily, lowered her head, and whispered, I can't now, dear. I can't stop right now, but it won't last long. Then there's nothing more to discuss. This conversation is over. I've heard everything I can stand. You said how you feel, and nothing I say will convince you otherwise. At the same time, I will no longer be able to trust a single word you say. I give up trying to speak rationally to a liar and deceiver. I felt like I couldn't breathe and needed to get away to relieve the tension. Behind me, she shouted, Wait, Cliff, please don't hate me. I love you so much. I went into the office and turned on the TV. I didn't care what was on, I was still in shock from the difficult conversation. I thought about going to a hotel and staying there overnight. I was so angry that I wanted to hurt her like she did to me, but I knew that going out and getting drunk was not my style. I think I'm too rational or boring to do anything rash. I was numb and tired, it seemed like a nightmare. How could she do this to me? Does she really believe that I can share her with some cocky guy from her school? I never thought that I was bad in bed. I knew I wasn't physically deformed and certainly not deprived by nature. I always felt like I had enough dignity, and Amy never complained. In fact, she told me many times that she loves our time in bed and that we have a wonderful intimate relationship. Now that she's tasted the forbidden fruit, is she so disappointed with my performance that she needs to seek satisfaction with another guy? Unfortunately, I think the answer is yes. I watched TV for another hour or two. There was some kind of match on, but I couldn't tell what was happening. At some point, I heard Amy go out onto the back deck. I think she called someone, probably that same idiot, to tell him how our conversation went. She returned after a while and entered the office. I was sitting in a chair so she couldn't sit next to me. She came closer and watched me for a while. Are you okay, Cliff? She asked softly. I know this conversation was difficult, and I want to help you. I looked at her and saw that she was smiling at me in a strange way. Do you want to talk more, or do you want to go to bed? She asked. You know I will do everything to make you feel better. I really want to. I was disgusted. She offered me intim to soothe my vulnerable feelings, pathetic intimate for the poor old husband, probably on the advice of her lover. Pathetic scraps for a gullible fool. How corny. This whole idea pissed me off. I simply ignored her offer and went upstairs to sleep. I was furious with my wife and thought about sleeping in the guest room, but I decided that she was to blame, so why should I leave my room? I undressed in record time and jumped into bed. A few minutes later, Amy entered the room. She saw that I was already under the covers and went into our private bathroom to change into a cute night outfit that she knew I liked. She turned off the light, slipped under the covers without a word, and began to approach me. Without moving, I pushed her away and said, Not today. But honey, I know you're upset. I just wanted. I turned over and stared at her. She was startled by my angry expression and pulled away. Even in the dark, I'm sure she could feel my indignation. Of course I'm upset as hell, I blurted out. I just found out I've been cuckolded for months. If you really need intim, call Cody. I'm sure your young stud will be able to satisfy you. Amy was stunned. I don't think she expected me to reject her like that. I glared at her for a few moments, then turned on my side again, facing the wall. Amy didn't say a word and didn't bother me anymore. It was very difficult for me to sleep, and I know it was for her too. The next morning, I got up with my alarm. I barely slept and was still very angry from the conversation last night. Amy was in bed but not asleep. I quickly took a shower, and when I came out, she was no longer in the room. Amy was supposed to be at school an hour before me. I've always been an early bird, although I didn't have to go out early. I usually got up before her and sometimes even cooked breakfast. Not today. This was before I found out she was cheating. I got dressed and quickly cleaned myself up. When I left the room, I saw her in the kitchen, surprisingly preparing breakfast. "Good morning, Cliff," she called sweetly. "There's bacon and eggs for you, and toast. Would you like some coffee?" I ignored her greeting and her suggestions. To hell with her and her lover. I didn't even look in her direction and just left the house. "Cliff, please wait." I heard her scream when I slammed the door. I got into the car and drove off. I admit I cried on the way to work. I just couldn't understand how she could show such disrespect for me and our marriage. I loved her so much. For 20 years, she was the main focus of my life, my lover and best friend. We had so many plans now that the kids were grown and out of the house. This was supposed to be our time to shine. Now everything was ruined. At work, I tried to forget about my problems, but I continued to think about her and this young guy and could not concentrate. Amy called me several times that day. I didn't answer, and her messages went to voicemail. I didn't even listen to them, I just deleted them. She sent some nice text messages. I looked at them and deleted them too. With her texts and calls, I couldn't get her out of my head. I made a few simple mistakes at work and eventually decided to take half a day off. I called a lawyer for advice. He was an old man and saw me immediately. It turns out Amy was right about the divorce. I would be fleeced emotionally and financially. She would leave with good money and a young lover for comfort, while I would be in a financial hole supporting her. Since I had never cheated, I didn't have a comfort girl. I would find myself quite poor and alone, perhaps in a small one-room apartment. The picture was not pleasant. If I stayed with her, it wouldn't be better. Of course, I'd get a night, she made that clear. But it would be meager scraps and comforting intimate. It was clear that this young guy was pleasuring her in a way that I never could. At 47 years old, I can't compete in bed with a handsome, athletic 30-year-old or whatever his age is. Besides, if I stayed married and ignored her infidelity, it would imply to the court that I am sanctioning her affair. They would assume that I agreed with my wife's cheating, and I would never be able to claim infidelity in court proceedings. Even more daunting was the prospect of fighting fire with fire, staying married and starting my own affair. In a competition with my wife, I would lose every time. There are many men who want to have a night with her, even as young as her children. Cody is proof of that. At 51, Amy is still quite attractive, with short dark hair, a slim figure, and a pleasant personality. I am an ordinary man over 40 with a slight receding hairline and a little excess weight. I have a good job and I look good for being 47 years old, but I'm not sure how many women would want to date an older, middle-class married man. Probably not many. The contrast between our dating prospects was depressing. She was still hot, and I wasn't. After a hard day at the office, I went to the bar for dinner. I stayed there until late evening. Unfortunately, I had never been into the bar scene and was bored being alone. I wanted to be at home with my wife, drinking beer and sitting comfortably in front of the TV, not drowning alone in alcohol surrounded by lonely guys like me. When I returned home, Amy was already in bed. It wasn't that late, but apparently, she had already given up and decided that I wouldn't come back. Not that I cared. The next day was Saturday, our usual date night. Friday was for recovery after a long week and a cozy evening at home. Saturday was reserved for doing household chores and, in the evening, for a pleasant date with my wife. But tonight, I didn't want to go out with her. I woke up early after another restless night. I left home at dawn and went to Denny's for breakfast. Then I drove around the city and did some shopping, mostly killing time. When I returned home, I wondered if my cheating wife was at home or with that young man in his apartment. It turned out she was at home. She must have heard my car pull up because, when I approached the door, she opened it and greeted me with a smile. When she tried to kiss me, I turned away, and she hit me on the cheek. She looked surprised when I pulled away from her hug and walked past her. "Welcome home, Cliff." "I love you." "Yes, sure," I muttered as I left. I went into the office and plopped down at the table that I sometimes used to work at home. She followed me. "Dinner will be ready in a few minutes, Cliff. Would you like a beer while you wait?" "No," I said, pretending to be busy checking something on the computer. I didn't hear her leave and knew she was still standing behind me. I know you're upset, Cliff, and I'm so sorry. I didn't answer. I knew you would be angry with me, but I had to tell you. I didn't want any more secrets between us. I think I didn't explain it well. I think we need to talk more, and I'll be happy to do that after lunch. I really love you, darling, Amy said. I didn't turn around. Her explanations irritated me. What was there to talk about? Her intention to continue her affair with that idiot? I didn't even want to think about it, so anything I could say to her now would be hurtful. After another minute of silence, she walked away, muttering to herself. While she was preparing the food, I thought about my situation. I just wanted to leave and divorce this expletive, but I understood that this would only harm me and put her in an advantageous position. I needed a plan, something that would allow me to maintain my dignity and, at the same time, let her know that everything was wrong. When she invited me to lunch, instead of staying locked in my office and getting angry, I decided to do something unexpected. Be back soon, I called back. It took me a few moments to collect my thoughts and suppress the anger inside. I went to the kitchen with a straight face. Amy had set the table and the food was ready. She probably expected me to be angry, so I surprised her. Looks delicious, I said, sitting down. You made tuna casserole. It looks great. They both knew it was one of my favorite dishes. She was clearly trying to please me. This is all for you, Cliff. I hope you like it. It looks great. Can we say a prayer of thanksgiving before we eat? Amy's smile faded slightly. We haven't said a prayer in many years. Of course, that is, if you want. I closed my eyes and said a short but precise prayer, thanking God for the food, our loving home, and forgiving each other. I didn't go into detail about the gratitude, but it was enough that when I opened my eyes, Amy looked a little shocked. I ended with a heartfelt amen and said, let's eat. I spent the next 20 minutes eating the delicious food. I forced myself to be pleasant and made casual conversation. There were a few awkward moments when she wasn't sure if I was being sincere, but soon Amy began to relax and respond to my conversations. For the rest of the meal, she seemed to accept that I had put our problems aside, at least for the time being. After eating, I helped her clean up, and she looked happy. She asked if I wanted to go out tonight like we usually do. I replied that no, I just wanted a quiet evening at home, and she seemed happy with that answer. While we were both cleaning, Amy accidentally bumped into me several times. We had just had a nice lunch like two platonic roommates. After lunch, Amy found me working in the garden. She called me to take a break. I said I wanted to finish the job I started. She was disappointed but didn't mind. Later, she came outside and said that she was leaving for a while. She mentioned she wanted to do some shopping and run errands and said she wouldn't be late. Normally, I would wish her luck and continue working, but now I didn't believe her. I have an idea. Give me a few minutes, and I'll go with you, I suggested, trying to sound nonchalant. We can go together. I need to buy something too. About what? She said, surprised. Just need to go shopping. I'll be back soon. No problem. I'll be ready in 10 minutes. I started walking up the stairs when I noticed her in the kitchen. I waited a moment while she made the call and overheard her talking in a hushed voice. I can't, not now, I heard her say into the phone. No, he wants to come with me. I tried to tell him. You're probably right. I can't. I haven't asked him yet. I don't think it's worth it. He's behaved weird since I told him. I know. Don't say that. Maybe tomorrow. Okay then. She laughed cheerfully at something he said. I knew she was talking to him. I guess I ruined their plans for the day. It's a pity. After we returned from shopping, Amy was in a thoughtful mood. I could see that she was distracted, but she didn't seem upset. I just let her dream about her lover without showing my irritation. As we put away our shopping, Amy asked, Do you want to go out tonight, Cliff? There's a nightclub that the girls told me about. They say it's good, with delicious food and live music. Do you want to go dancing? She smiled in a way that, in the past, would have melted my heart and made me do anything. Tonight, I just shook my head. No, I said. She was a little surprised by my abrupt refusal. Why not, dear? She said capriciously. You know that I love to dance, and we haven't gone out for a long time. Last time we went, you said I couldn't dance. Do you remember? It was a long time ago, and I was just joking. If you were joking, then why did you dance with all the other guys and leave me alone at the table? I don't remember this, she muttered. And 2 weeks ago, you went out with your girlfriends, I reminded her. You said it was a bachelorette party, but now that I know you're with Cody, I guess it was a cover for going out with him, huh? Amy's smile disappeared. No, Cliff, it's not like that, she stammered. I don't. Come on, Amy. You said no more secrets, right? I laughed. She was lying, and we both knew it. We know that you've been cheating on me for months, hiding the affair from your stupid old husband. I can see from your guilty look that you were lying. He was your date that night, and I'm sure that man took you dancing, right? Amy just looked at me, her face paling as she tried to come up with an answer. So why do you want to go out with a clumsy idiot like me tonight who can't dance, when you could be with a young stud like him? I'm sure you just compare me to them all night. Since he is young and hot, your boring old husband will lose in comparison. Oh dear, that's not true. No, Cliff, I wouldn't do that. Of course, you would. You've been doing this for months. I could almost see the wheels turning in her head. I'd made an unfounded accusation, but it seemed I was right. She was with that idiot that night. She had to decide whether to continue lying about her affairs or admit the truth. In the end, she couldn't decide and just sighed in annoyance. She turned on her heel and walked upstairs to the bedroom. I went to the office for a while to stay away from her. Later, when I went out, I found her in the kitchen. I went there to get a beer, then headed into the living room and turned on the TV. A few minutes later, she came up to me with a glass of wine. Can I join you? Amy asked politely. I noticed she had changed her clothes. She was now wearing a thin tank top that hugged her chest tightly, leaving her arms and shoulders bare. As you wish, I said. I was sitting on the sofa and moved to make room for her, but she made sure to sit right next to me. While watching the show, Amy became more affectionate. She must have finally noticed that, although I was friendly, I was anything but romantic. When I made no attempt to touch her, she moved closer and pressed herself against me. I knew the wine had warmed her up a little. She clearly wasn't drunk, but as her head moved closer to my shoulder, I chose that moment to say, I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, Amy said, pulling away. I stood up and left. When I left the room, I saw that she was looking at me strangely, as I almost never refuse her advances. I finished in the bathroom, but instead of returning to the living room, I went to the kitchen. Would you like some more wine, Amy? No, not now. Fine. Will you come back? She asked. The show was getting interesting. Not now, I said. I deliberately stayed in the kitchen for a while. When enough time had passed, I left the kitchen with a beer and went straight to the office, closing the door behind me. As expected, Amy opened the door a few minutes later. What are you doing? She asked with a smile. Some things to catch up on. Would you like to watch the show? Better not. It was clear she was still standing there as I stared intently at the computer. When I didn't look at her, I could almost feel her disappointment. I knew she was puzzled. A minute later, I felt her hands on my shoulders. What are you watching now? She asked, looking at the computer screen and pretending to be interested. I opened the documentation for one of my accounts. It was a complex financial spreadsheet. I knew she wouldn't understand what it was. I have work that I didn't finish on Friday, I told her. I didn't think you'd mind if I missed the show. Oh, of course not. I shuddered as she began to massage me. I could smell the alcohol on her breath as she leaned down and kissed my head. I just ignored her. After another 10 minutes, she got the hint that I wasn't interested. In the end, she just left and returned to the living room. Can you close the door, please? Fine, she said, closing it behind her. I breathed a sigh of relief. I was determined to remain indifferent to her feminine charms. I wasn't going to share them with another guy. It took me 3 hours to finish the job. When I went upstairs to go to bed, I found her sleeping. I guess she wanted to seduce me and planned to surprise me but got tired from the wine and fell asleep. On Sunday morning, I got up before Amy. When I finished getting dressed, I cooked a nice breakfast and brought it to her bed. She was surprised. "What is this unexpected gesture, Cliff?" she asked, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "I just wanted to get you something to eat before we go to church." Amy's smile disappeared. "Church? We haven't been to church for years." "I know, but it would be good to start going again. We haven't been that close in recent months. I think going to church will help us get closer again." "I don't want to." "Sorry, I already told your parents that we are going." "Going? What?" she screamed. "My parents? Why did you do that?" "Because I thought you'd want to come," I answered calmly. "But if you don't want to, you can stay at home. I'll just say that you're too tired for church and changed your mind." Amy's eyes sparkled. I knew the threat about her parents would make her go. She certainly didn't want it to seem like she was neglecting the church. Disrespect for her husband was acceptable to her, but disrespect for God was not. After church, Amy was furious. She found out that my lie about her parents was a ruse. What added to her anger was that the pastor's sermon had been about the sin of adultery, so the message was direct. She faked a smile as she left the church, shaking hands with the pastor and his wife, but then burst into anger at me. "You are an idiot. You caught me really well. I know you never told my parents anything about the church." I didn't argue, it was true, but it made her think about adultery, and that was important. For the rest of the day, she tried to provoke me, perhaps to have a reason to leave home, but I did not give in to her provocations. I just kept smiling and telling her that church was good for her. She screamed back that I was a liar and was just trying to manipulate her. Our lunch after church passed in silence. I tried to keep the conversation going, but she didn't want to talk. It didn't bother me one bit. Later that day, she said she was going out, with no explanation, just leaving. While she was getting ready, I went to her bag and took out her mobile phone. I looked through her messages and found that she was messaging her sister, who told her she didn't know anything about the church. She also sent several messages to her lover, arranging to meet him that evening. I was angry that he wrote to her and that she responded, arranging to meet him at a local restaurant. Later, I used her phone to text him that I couldn't wait to see him but that I would be a little late, maybe by 10 p.m. Since he had to be at school early in the morning, it was inconvenient for him to wait for her when the next day was a workday. I took the battery out of her phone, tampered with the contacts, and put it back in. I then went out to her car and disconnected one of the battery contacts. Now she had no phone and no car. Since we no longer had a home phone, only cell phones, there was no way for her to contact the man to cancel the appointment. I sat in the living room and watched TV, waiting for the scandal to start. Amy came downstairs dressed casually but smartly. Not vulgar, but the tight sweater and jeans fit snugly on her slender body. She looked quite respectable. She was still angry at me and walked past me, heading to her car. "I'll be back soon," she said sharply. "Where are you going?" "Honey, none of your business," she snorted. "Fine, good luck." Less than 5 minutes later, she returned. "Cliff, my car won't start," she said, clearly upset. "Will you look at what's happened?" "How do I know?" "It just won't start," I replied. I turned the key, and nothing happened. "Let's take a look," I said while standing over the engine with the hood up. Amy walked away, trying to make a call on her phone. I fiddled around while she started swearing. "Damn it, my phone doesn't work either." "Is that true?" I asked in surprise. "Is the battery charged?" "Must be," I said. "Damn it, now what?" "Do you want to use mine?" I asked, handing her my phone. I knew she needed to call her lover, but she didn't want to use my phone because I would find out who she was calling. "Well, I don't know what's wrong with your car," I said, shrugging my shoulders. "Looks like we'll have to call a tow truck tomorrow morning. But I can take you where you need to go if you want." I pointed at my car, and she just stared at me. Nothing worked out for her date. I think I shouldn't go. Don't you want to go now? No, I'll just wait until tomorrow. Then you need me to take you to work, right? With a concerned look on her face, Amy sighed. Yeah, I guess so. I got up at night and found her bag. I removed the tape from the phone contacts so she couldn't blame me for ruining it. On Monday morning, I took her to school. Amy had no choice but to accept my help. She was silent the whole way and did not look happy. I knew that she and that goat sometimes had lunch together, but I doubted they could have intimate during the day. According to her, they had a night after school at his apartment. I received half a dozen calls from Amy's school. I knew she was desperate to tell me she already had a ride home, probably from her lover. I simply ignored them. I tried to leave work early and arrived at Amy's school before her last lesson ended. I waited until the kids left the classroom. When I showed up in her class, she was quite surprised and not very pleased. Hi, dear. Are you ready to go home? I asked cheerfully. She gave me an angry look. I've been calling you all day, Cliff. Why didn't you call back? Sorry, I was very busy today. I wanted to tell you that I already have a ride home. Is that true? Never mind, I'm here, so let's go. At that moment, a tall, athletic guy with dark hair entered the room. He walked toward my wife as if he expected her to come and kiss him. I recognized him immediately. It was her lover, Cody. I had seen him before but didn't pay much attention. Up close, he looked even younger than I remembered, more like a college student than an adult teacher. He was wearing sneakers, shorts, and a t-shirt that showed off his muscular arms and legs. He looked good and was really in great shape. I could understand why Amy was attracted to him. Amy's eyes widened when he appeared. Cody looked a little confused. Oh, Cody, she stammered. I just told Cliff that I already have a ride home. I finished for her. The young man was puzzled, but when he saw me, he smiled irritatingly and looked from me to my wife. Oh, hello, he said, holding out his hand. I'm Cody Bakersfield, he said, extending his hand. I ignored it and coldly replied, yes, I know who you are. Trying to diffuse the tension, Amy stammered, Cody, this is Cliff, my husband. I think you met him once. The look of confusion on the young man's face softened a little as he remembered me. Oh, yes, exactly. Cliff Wilson. I remember you. Nice to see you again. I'm sure we met at a parent-teacher meeting a few months ago. I've heard great things about you from Amy. She respects you very much. Not enough, I guess, I answered sharply. I looked at my wife. She looked like she was holding her breath. Amy, let's get out of here, I said, wincing as if something was irritating me. She started to gather her things when Cody turned to me. Excuse me for a moment, Mr. Wilson. Can I call you Cliff? I frowned and ignored his question. What do you need? Just a moment of your time, Cliff. I understand that there is tension between us, which is understandable, but this is not necessary. I know Amy told you about our friendship, and I just want to clarify that I have no ill will toward you. I truly respect your strong, loving relationship with your wife. Is that why you sleep with her? I asked. Amy sighed when she heard my question. Cody nodded sympathetically. Yes, it's true. Amy and I are good friends, and we expressed our friendship intimately. But this does not mean that we do not respect you and your place in her life. Moreover, neither of us wants to harm your marriage or your family. We can only be friends and nothing more. She always said that she loved only you. This was serious nonsense. I didn't know what to say. I looked from that idiot's face to mine. My wife saw that she was impressed by her young lover's point of view. So if I asked you to stop sleeping with her, what would you say? I asked. He shrugged and said, I understand your concerns. I'd probably feel the same way if I were you. But what about ending our friendship? I would leave that decision up to her. Amy is a very smart, passionate woman. If she doesn't want to see me anymore, I will accept her wish. If she wants to continue, I don't know how I can refuse her. I couldn't hate this guy. I appreciated his honesty, but at the same time, I hated him. As reasonable as he was talking, the bottom line was the same. Unless I could physically eliminate him or find some way to scare him, he would continue to sleep with my wife, whether I liked it or not. I looked away and saw Amy and that man exchanging glances. I hated the look of adoration on her face. Regardless of how Amy felt about me before, I was now not in the same category as her hot new boyfriend. I felt completely defeated by his smooth speech. I could probably try to hit him and maybe even hit him a couple of times, but he was in great shape and most likely could have beaten me without any problems. He would make me look even more foolish than I already felt. Feeling like a fool, I pushed past the scoundrel and headed for the door without looking back. I heard Amy and Cody exchange a few whispers, then she hurried after me. "Cliff, wait," she called from behind. I could hear her heels clicking on the hard floor as I walked as quickly as possible to my car. I didn't want to be near her right now. The entire conversation left me feeling weak and humiliated. It was obvious how much Amy thought about him. I knew I couldn't compete with a young, talkative, handsome man like him. I hated him for seducing my foolish wife, although at the moment, I was probably more angry with her than with him. Amy was silent the whole way home. She said a few kind words to me, but mostly she just sat there, looking out the window, probably thinking about the strange scene in her class. I don't know what she thought about her lover now, probably more impressed with him than ever. I knew that my status had suffered greatly. I looked weak, confused, and hesitant, while he spoke confidently of his respect for me and his admiration for my wife. When we returned home, I stumbled up to my bedroom, feeling like I was 65 years old instead of 47. Amy saw that I was depressed and tried to console me, but it didn't help. She even offered to give me a back massage and something else, as she put it, to help me sleep. I didn't want her to touch me. She showed me a sad smile as she put on her nightgown and lay down next to me in bed. I felt that our marriage was on the verge of collapse. Regardless of whether she wanted to leave me or not, I knew who she really wanted. Nothing she could say or do could soothe the deep pain in my heart. The next night, I moved my things into the guest room. Amy was very disappointed by this. She argued with me to stay. I told her there was no point if she was having fun with Cody. She replied that I was her husband and my place was next to her. She even promised to give me everything I wanted intimacy if I stayed with her at night. I let her do the talking and ended up sleeping in a small single bed in the guest room. Amy went to bed that night crying. That week passed in a blur. Amy and I got up, went to work, came home, had dinner, and went to bed. I was hoping she might change her mind about her affair now that I had taken a stand and moved out of our bedroom, but she simply denied that I had a reason to leave. She said that I was being childish and that I could come back anytime. I came to my senses and didn't give up, and after that night, we didn't sleep together again. Amy was always home before me, which wasn't surprising because I usually worked later than she did. She always cooked something for dinner, and we just ate, hardly talking. We had no plans for the weekend again, so Friday and Saturday evenings were spent at home, watching TV. After watching TV, we went to our separate bedrooms. I never knew if she saw Cody anymore. She never said a word to me, but I suspected they were still seeing each other. Even if I came home on time, she had enough time to be with him after school. He didn't live far from the school, so I was sure they were together. She tried everything to hide her affair from me, but I wasn't a fool. Seeing her beaming expression as she talked about his antics in her class, I knew she was probably getting more from him than she ever got from me. I had some free time over the next week, so I stopped by my lawyer's office again and told him about the sad situation. I mentioned that we were sleeping separately, and he said that was probably for the best. He asked if I wanted to continue with the divorce, and I said not yet. I didn't tell him that I was trying to stash some money and move it around to maybe hide it from Amy's lawyer. Regardless of how much she would get, she would always have Cody to comfort her. He then asked if, in light of our situation, I wanted to draw up a separation agreement. It wouldn't necessarily lead to divorce, but would separate our finances a little and serve as proof later that I didn't approve of Amy's cheating. I liked the idea and told him to proceed. While I was waiting for this document, I tried to keep our home life as normal as possible. Amy and I spent time together in the evenings eating, cleaning, and sometimes watching movies. On weekends, I cut the grass, weeded the flower garden, washed the cars, and did whatever I could to keep myself busy and not think about the sad state of my marriage. She cleaned the house and did her chores as needed. Amy knew I was depressed. She was always friendly and made it clear that she was willing to resume our intimate life if I wanted. In the evenings, she would wear something a little cute and ask if I needed any help, giving me encouraging glances. We both tried to keep our conversations cheerful and casual. I never knew if she was seeing Cody, and she didn't do anything to give me any reason to suspect her, so as not to upset me. For this, I was grateful. I had heard of other wives who flaunted their affairs to humiliate their husbands. She never did this to me. The knowledge that she was continuing the affair was starting to weigh on me. There were times when I saw her in short shorts that exposed her slender white legs or in a thin blouse. At such moments, I couldn't help but think about how Cody was enjoying her body. She was over 50, and her face looked her age. Her breasts had sagged, and her muscles had become thin and flabby like those of older women. But to me, her body was still as attractive as ever. I knew I was still attracted to her. I let her drag me into the bedroom to try to make love, but several attempts to have a night were unsuccessful. Amy constantly said that she missed our love and wanted everything back the way it was. I have to admit that she did the best she could. Over time, she began to strongly advise me to go to the doctor and get checked, even hinting at medications, but talking about it only made things worse for me. After a couple of weeks, I gave up and stopped trying to have an intimate with her. I raised the issue of the separation agreement, and Amy was surprised and said she wouldn't sign it. She said she was not going to live separately from me. When I told the lawyer about this, he said the only way out was to just divorce her cheating fifth place. But if I didn't want that, he offered to sign another document that wouldn't have much significance in court but would at least confirm my negative attitude toward her infidelity. The document stated that I did not approve of her cheating and wanted her to stop, but she did not agree. He said this could play a small role in the event of a divorce. It wasn't much, but I signed it anyway. A couple of months later, after the scene in her class, I returned home feeling exhausted and depressed. I saw Amy's car in the driveway. There was another car parked nearby that I didn't recognize. It reminded me of stories I'd read about husbands coming home and catching their wives in bed with someone else. Was it my time to catch her with Cody or some other stranger? I entered the house and found Amy and another woman in the backyard. Both were lying on our sun loungers in swimsuits. The sun was low, so they weren't sunbathing but just relaxing in the shade with glasses of wine. Amy heard me coming and got up to go into the house. Her friend was left on the lounge. "Hi, Cliff," she greeted me cheerfully. "Glad you're home." She came up and tried to kiss me, but as usual, I turned my cheek. She seemed used to it by now, as she didn't look surprised. "Poor thing," she whispered, hugging me tightly. "Hard day?" "Not really," I replied. "That's good," she said. "Why don't you change into something more comfortable, Cliff, and come out to the backyard to meet my friend Susan?" "Are you sure?" "I'm not very good company," I answered. "Nonsense. Just change your clothes and come out," she laughed. "I'll cook something soon. Susan will have dinner with us tonight." I didn't like it. I didn't want to see anyone. I hoped Susan wasn't the school teacher. Perhaps she knew about Amy's affair. The thought was overwhelming. I did as she said. 20 minutes later, I walked into the backyard wearing casual shorts and a polo, holding a beer. "Cliff, this is Susan," Amy said, introducing us. "I haven't known her for long, but she's already become a good friend and wanted to meet you." "Hi, Cliff," the woman said, standing up and shaking my hand. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you, Susan," I replied. The woman shook my hand firmly and smiled. She was a short, vivacious woman with short blonde hair and a curvaceous body. She was a little plump with a pretty face, and her swimsuit hugged her curves tightly. It was obvious that her breasts were full and her hips were curvy and round. Amy wore a skimpy two-piece swimsuit that left her midriff exposed and showed off plenty of soft, pale skin. I guessed Susan was in her early 40s. Both were attractive, mature women who could appeal to many men. After an hour or so of chatting, Amy ordered Chinese takeout. When the food arrived, we went inside and sat at a table in the kitchen. Both women drank wine, and by evening, they were already a little tipsy. It was a Friday night, so I knew they wouldn't have to get up early for work. Despite my misgivings, I began to enjoy the company. Susan was a cheerful, lively woman who seemed to enjoy entertaining. She traveled a lot and entertained us both with stories of her travels. Amy and she got along well. I could understand why they became friends. It was already quite late, and I was feeling a little tired. The women were still drinking wine and seemed quite cheerful. I had only had 3 beers, so I wasn't drunk. They laughed while Susan told another funny story. When I told them I was going to bed, they both looked a little surprised. "Is it time to go to bed already?" Susan teased. "It's not even 11 yet." "He gets tired early now," Amy laughed. "I think he's getting old." This made them both laugh. I didn't join them. After living like a monk, I was a little annoyed by Amy's joke. I guess she noticed my hurt expression and patted my arm. "Come on, Cliff." "Oh, be careful." "I think you hurt his feelings," Susan laughed. "No more age jokes, sister," Amy replied with amusement. "I don't know why," Amy continued, "but I'm older than him, and I'm not worried." "Is it true?" Susan asked. "I would never have guessed." "Yes," Amy said. "I stole him from the manager. When I married Cliff, he was a little inexperienced, but I trained him well." "Well then," Susan giggled, "we'll have to do something about it. Between us, we have a lot of experience, don't we?" "Maybe," Amy said. Their chatter started to irritate me. I felt they were mocking my intimate abilities, implying they were insufficient. The last thing I wanted was to joke about how experienced my cheating wife had become. I was sure Cody had given her enough experience, and I was tired of it. "Good night to you both," I said rudely, getting up and leaving. That night, I had an incredibly vivid and disturbing dream. When I woke up, I found 2 women next to me. I sat up abruptly and pushed them away. Then I jumped out of bed, feeling very disoriented. It was still dark. As I stood trying to compose myself, I saw both women, Amy and Susan, smiling at me. "What the hell are you doing here?" I screamed in shock. "I thought you'd like it," Amy said softly. "Yes," Susan added, holding out her hand. "Go back to bed. You'll like it." "You're welcome, Cliff," Amy whispered. "I know you're mad at me, but it's been too long. I want you to be happy, darling. Just let us take care of you, please." "Screw you," I said, angry and confused. Susan may not have realized how sensitive the topic of our nightlife was, but Amy knew for sure. I left the room in irritation and headed to the kitchen. I took a few minutes to wash my face at the sink and clear the sleep from my eyes. When I turned around, both women were standing in the doorway. They looked a little embarrassed and moved to the kitchen table. They were wearing robes, but they were open enough that I could see they were without anything underneath. "What the hell were you thinking?" I asked them sharply. They exchanged uncertain glances. Amy said quietly, "We just wanted to help you." "Yes," said Susan. "Amy told me about your, situation. She thought I could help you get out of your depression. I still think I can if you let me." "I do not need help," I said. "And I'm not depressed. Everything was fine until she met this man and started cheating on me. She said nothing would change between us. Look how it turned out. Everything has changed. She's been cheating on me for months now, and I'm fed up with it," I said sharply. Susan replied, "Personally, I think she shouldn't do that, but she is a grown woman and makes her own decisions." "Yes, she made that clear," I shot back. "And look where it led. I know she doesn't want to hurt you, Cliff." "Easy for you to say," I said. "Don't you think it hurts to know that my wife isn't satisfied with me? She has to sleep with some guy old enough to be her son to get pleasure. How do you think I feel? Amy gets great into him, right? Her hot boyfriend can do everything in a way that I never could. She literally said I had to get over it, whether I like it or not. I'm stuck with her cheating 5th place." Amy cringed at my accusation. I didn't say anything new, but this may have been the first time Susan heard it. She looked at my wife with a knowing expression, then turned to me. "I didn't mean to hurt you, honey," Susan said. "We thought you might like to try us both. I thought you'd enjoy it." "I think most men would like it, but I'm not like most men," I shouted. "I'm sick of her cheating. I hate cheaters. She knows it. Instead of ending her dirty affair like she should, she wants me to cheat too. And when I didn't agree, you both tried to make me cheat in my sleep. This is a mean blow, Amy, even for someone like you." Susan looked a little guilty, and Amy's eyes dropped to the floor. "I just want to make you happy," my wife whispered quietly, holding back tears. "I didn't think. I thought you might like to try us both. I know you don't want me, but Susan is a cute woman. She wanted to be with us that night. I thought it would be fun." "Well, to hell with this," I spat. "What's next? Are you going to give me something to put me in a trance so I'm out of my mind?" "Come on, Cliff," Susan said. "We didn't do anything that bad." "Oh really?" I said. "Then I have an idea. Why don't you two invite Cody? I'm sure this lustful idiot would happily join a couple of prostitutes like you. And since you enjoy intimates so much, how about I call a few people I know? Wouldn't that be great?" "Stop it, Cliff," Amy said with irritation. "I understand we were wrong. Fine, there's no need to go crazy and be so insulting." "Am I crazy now?" I asked. "Well, I'm leaving," I said, heading for the door. "You both make me sick. I was thinking of going to a hotel, but damn it, I'm not going to let my stupid wife kick me out of my own home." I went into the guest room, locked the door, and moved the dresser in front of it. Now, if they tried to sneak in, at least I'd hear them coming and be able to defend myself. The next day, I realized I couldn't take it anymore. Even though I loved Amy, I now knew that she would never give up. I went to see my lawyer during my lunch break and told him to proceed with the divorce. When I told him how my wife and her friend tried to cheat on me in my sleep, he suggested using an order of protection to kick her out of the house and keep her away. I agreed. 2 days later, Amy was served a summons at school during lunch. The courier walked straight into the staff room and handed it to her in front of her friends. He then served Cody with a summons for interfering with our family relationship. He also went into the principal's office and handed him a summons for allowing Amy and Cody to have an affair during school hours on school grounds. We had no evidence for the latter charge, but we were going to gather witnesses regarding their sports activities and hoped that the story Amy told me would support it. I was sure some teachers suspected Amy and Cody were having an affair. Time would tell. Either way, the fact was that they cheated, and I suffered because of it. I got a call from work just after lunch. "Damn you, Cliff!" Amy screamed. "Damn fool! I told you what would happen if you filed for divorce. It can't be worse than living with a cheater and her accomplice," I said. "I'm tired of you and your boyfriend. You can both go to hell." "I understand why you're mad at me," she said. "You've made that clear dozens of times. But was it necessary to involve Cody in your revenge? He is a good guy. This incident in his personal file won't benefit his career. Screw this. He should have thought about this before he decided to sleep with his colleague. He's a man just like you and deserves everything he gets. By the way, don't bring your boyfriends to our house anymore. And you, too, stay away. You can read the order of protection I filed against you. You should stay away from me. I also changed the locks, so you can't bring your boyfriends here and have a night with me without my consent." "You are crazy. Everything is not as you say," she screamed. "Most men would be thrilled to have an intimate with 2 hot women, but not you. I think 2 intimacy-charged women are too much for a weak man like you." Susan was right, you're one damn weirdo. By the way, is Susan married? If so, I would like to talk to her husband and tell him what kind of prostitute his wife is. "Go to hell," she said. "I won't do it again." I laughed. "Get your stuff out of the driveway before it rains and ruins it. If you need anything else, contact my lawyer." "You'd better not," she started, but I hung up. Amy arrived that evening to pick up her things. I watched from the window as Amy arrived with her friend Heidi. She screamed several curses and gave me the middle finger. I just laughed. Now that she had left home, I felt a huge sense of relief. Her infidelities were no longer in my sight. Of course, I missed her after so many years of living together, it was inevitable. But after living with her cheating for so many months, most of the love I felt for her had evaporated. The children called me several times. Martha was a little angry with me. She found out about her mother's actions and didn't approve. She asked if I could ever forgive her and take her back. I said I could if Amy would just stop seeing her boyfriend and return to being faithful, but she didn't want to, and I couldn't take it anymore. Robbie was more sympathetic. He knew his mother had screwed up and didn't blame me for kicking her out, and I was grateful to him. I told them both that I still loved them and would always be there to help if they needed anything. We still have a good relationship. My lawsuit against the school board came to nothing. Apparently, Amy was telling the truth when she said she never had a night at work. She and her boyfriend only had an intimate at his apartment or some other place, not at school. In fact, we had a hard time finding people who even knew about their affair. So, she was right to keep it a secret. But the fact that we couldn't prove bad faith on school grounds didn't save Cody's job. He was fired with a harsh reprimand and soon left town because of the rumors. Amy was also fired. She was quite annoyed by this and called me several times, screaming that her work problems were entirely my fault. She applied to a school in another area, but they found out about her affair and didn't hire her. Marta told me that she now works as a receptionist at a real estate agency in a nearby town. The divorce took some time. We had to sell our house because neither Amy nor I could afford it on our own. Perhaps I could have managed, but the house was too big for me alone. Amy only took a few things from our house when she moved. I rented a 2-room apartment close to work and put most of our furniture in temporary storage. After the divorce, I didn't date much. I was wary of women, and money was tight due to school fees and Amy's child support. I couldn't hide much from Amy's lawyer, but when I was single, I spent very little, and my finances started to improve. I dedicated myself to my work and am now close to a promotion. After everything that happened with my wife, I was a little afraid to start a long-term relationship. I didn't feel comfortable jumping into the dating world right away. I have met some good women through caring friends. I don't know how this will end, but even without a steady relationship, I enjoy meeting women and hope to find companionship with some nice people. One Friday night, I was on a date with an attractive woman I met at work. Her name is Stacy. She's about 38 and has been divorced for several years. She is very sweet, cheerful, and beautiful. It was our third date, and we were having dinner at a nice restaurant on the other side of town. We were drinking coffee and eating dessert when I noticed a woman I knew a few tables away from us. The older woman was painfully thin, had short blonde hair, and was having dinner with a much older man. He looked frail, with gray hair, and appeared to be around 70 years old. At first, I didn't recognize her, but when I looked closer, I saw that it was my ex-wife, Amy. I mentioned to Stacy that my ex-wife was nearby. Stacy looked quite shocked. "Is this woman your ex-wife?" she asked, surprised. "She looks more like your mother than your wife." I explained that Amy was several years older than me, to be exact, and that she was probably having a hard time living after our breakup. I was a little worried about how much weight she had lost, almost to the point of being painful. "God," Stacy laughed. "She looks older than your mother, and he looks like her father. It's hard to believe she was your wife." I tried to look indifferent, but inside I was worried about Amy. She was wearing a sleeveless dress, and I could see that her arms were just loose skin on bones. The lines on her face that were there when we were together seemed to have deepened. I didn't tell Stacy, but Amy looked very unwell. I hoped she would take care of herself. We didn't discuss it anymore. We finished our delicious dinner and were about to leave. Stacy went to the toilet, and I was waiting for her at the entrance when I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. "Hi, Cliff," I heard a familiar voice. "Hi, Amy," I answered. I turned around, and there she stood. Her face had aged greatly. I wanted to politely say that she looked good, but I didn't want to lie. Instead, I simply said, "It's so nice to see you. How are you?" "Oh, not that bad," she replied. Her once sparkling blue eyes had dimmed, her face had become thin, and her skin had an unhealthy tint. I talk to Martha and Robbie sometimes, she added. They seem to be doing well at school. I'm happy for them. Yes, Martha sometimes visits me. Robbie not so often. We just looked at each other for a while. Well, Amy, I don't want to keep you from your date. He's not really a date, she answered vaguely. So, are you still with Cody? I asked innocently. A haunted look appeared in her dull blue eyes. Amy lowered her head for a moment before answering. No, I'm not with Cody anymore, she said in a soft voice. I haven't seen him for a few months after our divorce. She raised her head and added quietly, but that's okay. I don't want to see him. Sorry to hear that, I said. There was an awkward pause, and I wanted to end the conversation before Stacy returned. Well, it was nice to see you again, Amy. Yes, it is, she said, looking me straight in the eyes. Her thin fingers suddenly squeezed my hand tightly. You know, Cliff, I'm really sorry about how things turned out between us. You were right. You know I was. Yes, in everything, I replied. Cody wasn't worth it. Now I understand it, she spoke with emotion, her eyes becoming moist. You are married. I saw your companion. She is very beautiful. No, I am single. You know what they say, once bitten, twice shy. I said this as a joke, but she didn't laugh. She just looked at me with sadness in her eyes. Yes, I understand. You have always been the only man for me. I knew it then but was too stupid to appreciate it. Well, I don't know what to say, I answered, feeling a little confused. Listen, Cliff, if you ever want to talk, she said, pushing a piece of paper into my hand. Her wrinkled face looked at me expectantly. I didn't throw away the paper, and for a moment, her blue eyes sparkled again, as they had when I loved her. I'd really like to hear from you, Cliff. I know that we can never be together. I know I messed up, but I hope you're happy now. I know you weren't happy with me. Your companion is very beautiful. I just hope she appreciates the opportunity to be with you. Then, without another word, Amy turned around and walked slowly back to her table. She said something to the old man, who looked at me with curiosity. Stacy returned from the restroom at that moment, ready to go. Cliff, certainly, she said as we left hand in hand. I left the restaurant and threw the piece of paper into the trash can on the way out. That was the last time I saw Amy. I heard from the children that she lives with some old man in a neighboring town, probably the same one I saw her with in the restaurant. They said she wasn't feeling well, her health has deteriorated, and she has diabetes. Luckily, this man has the money to support her. Stacy and I never got married, but I'm still doing well as an accountant. I still see the children but not their mother. I think I still feel something for her, but after what she put me through, I can never live with her again, and I want to keep it that way. What do you think of our story today? In my opinion, the wife lied to her husband for her own good, but the husband was smarter, which I liked. What do you think? Write in the comments. See you in the next video.